The Milwaukee Bucks are in a really bad position right now, and I mean bad.
Washington Wizards snap their 3-game losing streak.
Bucks got to regroup. And the Bucks have dropped 3 straight this week. 4 straight losses now for the Bucks.
They've lost 7 of their last 10 games, and 3 of them even came from below 500 teams, and with their most recent loss to the Magic, they've now dropped to the 3rd seed in the East and will be facing off against the Pacers, a team in which they've lost 4 times this season. Not to mention, Giannis is also injured and is doubtful for Game 1 in the playoffs. How much trouble are they facing? What went wrong? And could there still be hope for them to fix things out? Be sure to stick around and find out. During the offseason, the Milwaukee Bucks front office decided to make some changes to not only the roster, but to the coaching staff as well. The Bucks made a blockbuster trade that put the whole league on notice, acquiring superstar point guard Damian Lillard from the Portland Trail Blazers in exchange for a 2029 unprotected first-round pick, 2 first-round pick swaps, and for arguably the best defender in the league in Drew Holiday. In addition to acquiring Lillard, the Bucks signed Adrian Griffin and appointed him as the new head coach after a fallout with Mike Budenholzer. At the start of the season, Adrian Griffin surprisingly actually did a pretty solid job in his role as the head coach for the Bucks. In his first game as a head coach, he managed to lift the Bucks up for a tough win at home against the 76ers. Now moving on to the next stretch of games, it's a toss-up as whenever the Bucks would get win, they would then proceed to get blowout losses the next night against teams like the Hawks and Raptors, in which we'll get back to later, especially the Hawks post-game, as something had occurred there involving Bucks star GiannisAntetokounmpo that may or may not have a reason on why Adrian Griffin got fired. Fast forward to that. On the 13th of November in a matchup against the Bulls, the Bucks would then start a winning streak of 5 games before being ended against their conference rival, the Boston Celtics. Again, be sure to stick around on this one as it may or may not involve a familiar face. But fast forward to a couple of more games after that loss, and guess what? The Bucks would then go on a winning streak again, winning 7 straight games starting December 11th against the Bulls yet again. Poor Chicago, man. Moving on, after the winning streak ended, Milwaukee is actually looking quite strong with Adrian Griffin as their head coach, standing as the 2nd seed in their respective conference with a record 30-13. Now, with that record, you would think that everything is going really well, especially with your head coach leading the charge. Well, that's where you're wrong. On January 24th, the Bucks ultimately decided to part ways with Adrian Griffin. While the majority of Bucks fans may have caught this as a surprise, the front office and the general manager, however, did not. In fact, over the last couple of months, there have been a number of rumors swirling around between Adrian Griffin and his players showing their distrust of one another. Let's go back to what I've said earlier. Remember when the Bucks lost to the Hawks in the blowout win early in the season? Well, they lost so badly it got to the point where GiannisAntetokounmpo had to then conduct an unusual quest for answers. While reporters were interviewing his teammate Damian Lillard, Giannis decided to make his way to the giant whiteboard that literally takes up nearly an entire wall of the whole locker, and began drawing plays with assistant coach Josh Oppenheimer. Though it was stated that Giannis was more curious than anything, still it feels unusual to witness a superstar of Giannis's caliber to publicly question a team's system of play. But what about that same week as well, after the Raptors game where the Bucks lost in a blowout yet again? After yet another blowout loss, a few of the Bucks veterans had to step in and confront Adrian Griffin and convince him to change the way he coaches the team. To no surprise, they got their wish, as in a matchup versus the New York Knicks, which they won in largely due to Brook Lopez's contributions, capturing 9 blocks. Adrian Griffin stated after the game, "Sometimes as coaches, we're too smart for our own selves," Griffin said. "A couple players came to me, I won't disclose, but they wanted Brook deeper in the drop and I was smart enough to listen to them. It paid off tonight." As a former player, it helps me relate to the players because the players are in the trenches. We watch it on film, but they live it. The players aren't always correct with their assessment, but I think it's wise to at least listen to them. Remember when they also lost their first head-to-head matchup against Boston? Yeah. At one point in the game during the 3rd quarter, Giannis was subbed out of the game and the 2-time MVP, rather than going to bench, he instead decided to sit down at the scorer's table. You can clearly see in that moment that both him and the coach aren't seeing eye to eye. Shortly after that, rumors started to speculate that there could be tension between both Giannis and Griffin. Fortunately, after the game, Griffin cleared it up by saying he wanted to stay in. I wanted to give him a breather. That's all it was. Then I told him to stay at the table for 1 possession, and he got it right back out there. Now to clarify, these are only the few reasons why they decided to put away Adrian Griffin as head coach, but ultimately the main reason why is because of the lack of defensive intensity. You see, despite Griffin helping the Bucks to a league-best 2nd in offensive rating, on the other side of the court, they're pretty terrible with them being 21st in the NBA in defensive rating, and over the last 15 games of him coaching for them, it then fell down to an abysmal 27th. Now, with all those issues being in one place, they then decided to go with another coach, DocRivers. And currently, I think it's safe to say that they might regret that decision a lot more once we've reached Doc's final form. DocRivers giving us a glimpse of his power, rewarding Milwaukee with a 17-19 record ever since he came by to Cream City. And it's safe to say that in the upcoming first-round matchup, he might show you how good of a blower he is. Let's talk about DocRivers' resume as a coach in the last 2.5 decades. Rivers started his coaching career in 1999 with the Orlando Magic. And funnily enough, he was actually named Coach of the Year in his first season there in Orlando, and magically led them to 3 first-round exits as a sign of appreciation, with one of them being a 3-1 lead choke. Truly one of the first of many of his soon-to-be unbreakable records. Rivers was then fired in 2003 after the Magic got off to an awful start of 1-10. After his run with Magic in 2004, Rivers was then hired by Boston, in which he spent 9 whole seasons, where in 2 of them he led them to the finals and 1 NBA championship in 2008. The only one of his career so far. Rivers' team failed to make the playoffs in 2005 to 2006 and 2006 to 2007, finishing 33-49 and 24-58. Soon after this, he was getting a bad rep for how poor of a coach he has been so far in his career, but then Kevin Garnett, an NBA MVP, was traded for the Minnesota Timberwolves to the Celtics in 2007 to 2008, forming a big 3 with Paul Pierce and Ray Allen. The Celtics then, along with DocRivers, improved to 66-16 before defeating Kobe Bryant and the Los Angeles Lakers in 6 games to win the NBA championship in 2008. Because of this championship ring, many could argue it saved his reputation as a coach. The next season after that, the Celtics are still looking strong as ever, as they won 60 games yet again. However, they would only last till the second round due to Kevin Garnett being out with an injury during the playoffs. The next year, Rivers would then lead the Celtics back to the NBA Finals in 2009 to 2010, but came up short as they were defeated by the Lakers in 7 games. After his run with the Celtics, get this, as a coach in 2013, he was traded to the Clippers in exchange for a first-round draft pick. In his first season in Los Angeles, Rivers led the team to a franchise-high 57 wins. Fast forward to the first round of the playoffs. The Clippers are facing off against a young Golden State team, which shockingly reached 7 games where the Clippers won. Next comes the second round, where they'll be facing off against the Thunder, led by then MVP Kevin Durant and Russell Westbrook, where they lost badly, especially in that infamous Game 5 where it changed the rest of the series going forward. The following season, the Clippers made the playoffs yet again and beat the defending champion Spurs, but lost in the second round against the Houston Rockets by blowing a 3-1 lead, adding more to DocRivers' legendary record. 5 years later, DocRivers still continues what he does best and managed to blow another 3-1 lead in the second round against the Denver Nuggets. Shortly after that defeat, Rivers finally stepped down as a head coach. Or so have we thought. Guess who's back again?
How many times do we have to teach you this lesson, old man?
A 3-1 blown away apparently doesn't get the doctor away. The 76ers, after parting with Coach Brett Brown, had signed DocRivers, and like typical DocRivers fashion, he most likely won't make it that far, as the 76ers during his time there have never reached the second round of the playoffs, and to add insult to injury, after blowing a 3-2 lead against the Celtics in 2023, and getting blown out in Game 7 with a score of 112-88, this defeat marked another one of DocRivers' record of having one of the most losses in a Game 7 by a coach with only 6 wins and 10 losses. Shortly after this defeat, he was then fired. With this many L's DocRivers took in his coaching career, you gotta wonder what made the Bucks have the idea to hire him. Especially now in the upcoming playoffs. Remember, the Bucks disappointingly lost last year against a Heat team led by Jimmy Butler and Bam Adebayo, along with purely role players. Now they're facing off against the #1 offense in the league and the Pacers, led by Tyrese Halliburton, in the first round. And hell, Giannis may not even play for Game 1 of the series and is questionable for the next few games. I mean, come on, who's going to get the game ball now? All jokes aside though, do you guys remember 5 years ago when Kevin Durant suffered the same calf strain, and when he came back, he tore his Achilles and it cost him to miss out 1.5 seasons of basketball? Yeah, the Bucks may experience the same situation if Giannis was ever rushed to come back. Another thing to take note as well is DamianLillard is still struggling, and he hasn't been able to figure things out in Milwaukee. And let's say if somehow or some way they beat the Pacers in the first round, how are they going to beat the Celtics, the Knicks, or even the Heat again? Does having DocRivers as your coach really help out? And with the way the Bucks are performing right now, do they even stand a chance? With all these problems to take in, things may look rough for the Bucks currently and for the future. But let me know what you think. Do you really believe that the Bucks can make something happen and turn their season around? Or is it too late? Will DocRivers blow another 3-1 lead? Let me know in the comments, and be sure to like, subscribe to Hoop Pulse, as well as hit the notification bell for more videos just like this one.